There it is. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode number 2 of Willpower Unleashed. I'm joined by my boy, Tim, and 2 of my good friends. Tim, say what's up, man.
Hey, guys.
So, obviously, we got Matt Thanatos in here.
What's going on, everybody?
And we've got a special guest this evening, Carson Cwood 19. Welcome to you, brother.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks now. I saw your last show and it was awesome, and now I'm ready to talk about what might be, well, I don't know, it's either this one or Sinestro Corps, but this is one of my favorite all-time Green Lantern stories, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Sweet, man. We are really happy to have you with us. We know that when we started telling everybody about this, we had certain people saying they love this trade paperback or that one, and you were the guy that said love Rebirth, so we had to get you on, man.
Well, thanks for thinking of me, guys.
Anytime.
For sure, man, for sure. So let's see who is in the chat and who's joining us this evening. We've got Caleb. What's going on? Let's see. Caleb Comics Murphy. You changed that, didn't you, bro? Got John Comic with Kids. He's telling Caleb, you beat me, man. You beat me. So, John, are you ready to come on with us? Our next show, man, we've got you penciled in for No Fear. So let's we'll get together afterwards and make sure that we can do that.
I think Comic Smurf he's gone full Green Lantern mode. Like every single one of his posts on Instagram is him reading Green Lantern. It's pretty wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, I keep getting his messages of all the books he's picking up, and I'm like, all right, I gotta hustle some more, man.
John's Comics with Kids says he is in for sure.
Sweet. All right, man. So let's see who else is in here. Comic Geek McD, what's up, Michael? How you doing, bro? Hope you're feeling better. Perry Comics, we got Thierry 23. Who else you guys see in here? Gomez, what's up, brother? Dak Hammer, poor Mike, the great man.
Did you already say Whoopty Bird?
Yeah, I did. Whoopty Bird.
He messaged me today, and he was like, "I haven't finished the books yet. Like, you better get on it, man, because otherwise you're
spoilers, dead." I guess.
Right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for stopping by. We hope some of you guys have read along. We just finished this, Tim and I, for the second time earlier today, and I'll tell you what, this one was even more emotional than the last book. So I'm really excited to dig into it and get some knowledge from these 2 veterans over here. So what'd you guys think overall, man? I mean, I know you both have read it before, but rereading it again, how did it feel?
For me, I was absolutely blown away. I was so happy to reread something and enjoy it because I think I've talked about on my own channel and stuff. I'm just not feeling a lot of the modern comics lately, it seems like. So to finally make the time and go back and read one of my all-time favorites, I'm glad you guys invited me here, so I had to read Green Lantern Rebirth because, like I said, I absolutely love this story, and it's definitely a high point for me in terms of the Geoff Johns run, even though it's the first part of the run.
It feels good, right?
Yeah.
I think that this book was the first comic that I ever read.
Wow.
Ever. So this also this is the big reason why I'm not a big Batman fan. I hate the guy. The feelings I have for comic books come from Rebirth, and then years later, almost over a decade later, of more Green Lantern and more of the mythos, and then you just see how masterful Geoff Johns was at taking stories from the late 80s and 90s and all these different things that were happening back then, and retconning them and making them all make sense. Like there were so many mysteries. Like why are they weak against yellow? No one could ever explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Geoff Johns, he constructed this amazing story to make so it all makes sense. It's perfect.
Yeah, he took so many things, especially I was just telling Matt before we started, there were so many bad things that they did with Hal Jordan in the 90s, especially. And Geoff Johns just took all this, I call it just all this crap, and he lumped it all together and somehow made a very good story out of it. I respect Geoff Johns forever for doing this miniseries.
Yeah, he definitely laid his own foundation. Like he took
Mhm.
everything from so many different pieces of Green Lantern, and he laid a foundation to start his own, and he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Cwood said he doesn't really read many new books, and I got back into comics reading all the new stuff, and there's a lot of things that I like. But now that I'm reading all this Geoff John stuff, like it's blowing us away, man. It's at a different level
Mhm.
than the stuff that we're getting now. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I was just thinking this today as I was reading it again. I don't know how much I'm gonna stick with these new books. There's probably so much stuff that I'm missing out on, you know.
Tim, how did you feel about it?
Yeah.
I actually really like this one. If I'm being honest, though, I kind of like the first one better. So,
which is totally understandable. This is definitely, if you don't know a lot and you're kind of going into it blind, it's overwhelming because you're like, who the hell is the Spectre? Who is this parallax entity? Like, what is going on? Like, you don't know who Guy Gardner is. You don't know who John Stewart are. There's so, like, the only parts in this that really make any sense are like, oh, the Justice League, and they're trying to fight a big bad, like, somewhere. Yeah. So, I mean, the only things we've seen from Secret Origin in here, I mean, it definitely made more sense to start with Secret Origin and flow into this so you have at least a little bit of the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you guys are in for a real treat, especially if you haven't read it yet. Because for me, when I was reading all these as they were coming out originally, like 04 on, I felt like Secret Origin was almost like a stopping point to, you know, kind of get your mind refreshed so you get ready for like Rage of the Red Lanterns. Now you guys are basically going to go from the Sinestro Corps War, and I think it starts off with the Alpha Lanterns for a little bit, and then right into the Rage of the Red Lanterns. So it's just like a crazy roller coaster for you guys from here on out.
Yeah, man. We're really excited to get into it more, but John is saying he kind of wants to see. Oh, I love that sound.
I hate that. Wait, what do you guys think of the odds that it's a Green Lantern thing?
I'd say very high.
Yeah, Green Lantern number 201.
Nice. I just got that book last week, actually. I finally have a first kill log.
Signed and sketched by Joe Stad, 9.6, ends in 10 minutes.
Nice.
Are you going after that one hard?
No, I'm not. I don't. I just add stuff to my watch list. I don't need that.
Oh man. So yeah, so John is saying that he wants to hear a lot from Tim, and Timmy, John does not love this story of Rebirth, man. So he's all about the next one. So he's kind of on your side there. So guys, before we jump into Rebirth and talk about this and Emerald Twilight, and Tim and I get some more info from these two veterans here, we want to throw in that Matt and I are going to be doing something every week so that we can make sure you guys are excited to do this with us. We want to have a little trivia tonight at the end of the broadcast. We're going to ask a question, and once we do that, the first person that answers that question, we are going to buy them a copy of No Fear tonight so they can buy it, so they can read it and be prepared for the next broadcast. So we want you guys to stick around and be a part of it. Matt came up with the idea. So anything else you want to add to that, Matt?
I think it was your idea.
Was it my idea?
Yeah, I definitely think that it definitely makes sense to that every episode that we do of this, you know, we want people to be excited about the next one. And so being able to like Amazon Prime someone a trade paperback of the next story that we're going to do, you know, that guarantees at least one person is going to watch the show, maybe. It definitely always feels good to give back to the community. And you know, we obviously are taking a part of your time. So we'd like to make the most of it for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. And like guys like Comic Geek McD or anyone overseas like the Gray Man, say they win tonight, we'll just give them a
digital copy.
Yeah, digital copy.
or just send you some PayPal so you can order it.
That's right. So let's get to the chat real quick. Gomez is saying eBay is a cancer, man. It can be. But every time I hear that sound, it gets me so excited. I just get this nostalgia that rushes through me, and I love it.
You get that Pavlov.
That's right, man. Exactly what I get.
I gotta admit, yesterday I just bought another first John Stewart for really cheap, so I'm really looking forward to that. Even though I got one next to me down here.
Oh, your rate is so nice. Show it.
Yeah, let me get that out of here. So actually, I gotta show the other book too now. So I got issue number 85
Ooh.
in 9.2. So there's that. But my baby that I got graded last year is my first Jon Stewart, 9.4.
When that
It's
came
an
out,
awesome Neil Adams cover. So these were the only two books I got graded on last year. I don't do a lot of grading, but I had to get me these two graded. So they're my babies.
So Cwood, tell Tim, because he doesn't know about these books, what's the significance of each of those books, man?
All right, so the 9.2, which is Green Lantern 85. Well, just this whole Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams run. It's very groundbreaking in terms of it was the 70s. The world in general is just getting a lot grittier in terms of, you know, movies, music, and of course comic books. So the comic books were slowly getting a little less cartoony. They're going away from what was called the Comics Code of Authority. So because of that, you saw a little bit more of the 70s drug culture infused into DC Comics. So the ultimate example is this cover right here always. So you have Speedy, shooting up heroin, and he gets caught by Green Lantern and Green Arrow there. So this is a very important book in my opinion to have. So definitely essential reading there. And then this one, 87, they whoop the Green Lantern. Wait till they get a load of me. So you have the first appearance of Jon Stewart, who obviously you read Rebirth, so you probably know who Jon Stewart is by now. But yeah, this is his first appearance. And this is kind of the second time they toyed with a replacement Green Lantern. Obviously I had Guy Gardner first. I still need that issue, but Jon Stewart, he's up there. He might be my second or third favorite. It's hard to pick that second or third favorite when it comes to the Green Lantern Corps. So yeah, happy to have those in the collection.
Those are sick, man. Those are really sick. Tim was saying that he read a similar Spider-Man issue, and there's those Spider-Man drug issues.
Mm-hmm.
So he's thinking they're kind of similar, right?
Yeah.
So cool. All right, man. So we got some more people in the chat. Just want to say hello to everybody really quick. JD, what's up, my brother? How you doing? We got Chris Mitchell in the chat. Mr. Gorell, Old Wolf 65, Bake the Snake. And Matt, I agree with your assessment right there, man. Hal Jordan is greater than John. It's greater than Kyle. Greater than Guy.
Sorry, guys. Hal's the best.
Hal's definitely my favorite for sure. All right, well, let's dive into this, guys. Chat, as you guys are watching this and we go book by book, we want to hear you guys' questions. We want your input. We're going to try really to be on top of, what you're saying and what you guys thought about Rebirth yourself. So let's get into it, all right? So here we go. I'm thinking, guys, that we're going to go through here and then we'll jump back to Emerald, Twilight, and Heroes in Crisis, or not Heroes in Crisis, Zero Hour. And we'll kind of cover it as we go. What do you guys think?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
That works.
Cool deal, man. So first things first, you both know that I did not read much Green Lantern. I don't know where the heck Kyle Rayner came from, man. So this story starts off with Kyle Rayner, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. And really cool to see him talking. But I have no idea how he was the sole Green Lantern leftover and how when this story starts, it's all about him. So I kind of want to cover that with you guys, if you can give us some more information.
I think the best way maybe to do this is, instead of covering Emerald Twilight at the end, is just to probably slide it in as we go along the story, because a lot of this stuff that we're going to discuss is going to apply, or like things that happened in Emerald Twilight, Zero Hour, Final Night, are going to apply throughout this story. So Cwood, if you want to take that question.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of starts here, way back here. Green Lantern 46. This is actually the first Green Lantern comic I ever bought off the rack. Nice. Because it was part of the Reign of the Superman. The first comics I ever collected were The Death of Superman. So I was reading this whole thing, and I would get them in the mail and everything. And I was just like, I heard in Wizard magazine, I missed an issue. They did one Green Lantern issue that wasn't a Superman issue of Reign of the Superman. So I'm like, oh man, I got to find that issue. I have no idea about anything about Green Lantern, but it's Reign of the Superman. I got to have them all. So I finally found a copy of this. And you find out basically Mongol and Cyborg Superman, they get together and their dastardly fiend to take over everything. They end up more or less destroying Coast City completely. It's a crater in the ground after Cyborg Superman and Mongol are done with it.
Just so jacked up that like such an event that happens in another storyline ends up completely affecting.
Yeah, we're going to get into that tonight. I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, the 90s, not kind to Hal Jordan by the slightest.
Not at all.
So after these guys make Coast City a crater, you know, Hal takes a beating in this book. Like Mongol, he's yellow. And as we've talked about, Green Lanterns and yellow, that's not a good combination. So Mongol, he beats him up pretty good, but at the end of the day, Hal, with maybe a little bit of help from, you know, the Supermen, you know, they overcome the two guys. So that leads us in Emerald Twilight, where at this point, Hal, he's driven mad, basically. You know, as we kind of find out through Johns' writing, which we didn't know yet, there's more fear than ever and confusion and doubt in Hal Jordan at this point in Emerald Twilight. So you see him, he uses his ring in this first issue here, basically, to try to reconstruct Coast City from the ground up using his Green Lantern ring. Unfortunately, that doesn't end well for him because, number one, all the constructs, he's using the will and the imagination in his head to make his version of the people.
Yeah.
So when he does that, the Guardians of the Universe, obviously, they're not having it because he's using his ring for personal gain at that point. So obviously, Hal, he's not in his right mind. He's driven even more mad at this point. So that's when you get, in my opinion, maybe the best Green Lantern cover of all time still for me. Emerald Twilight Part 2. My favorite cover. I actually put this in a Mylar just after I read this. I'm like, I'm rebagging this in an e-Gerber, but man, I just love that cover. Got it double signed even. But anyway, as you can see in this one, they turn up the volume on the insanity meter pretty quick. He's fighting his comrades like left and right. He's taking rings, and he's just not having any of the Guardians' rule at this point. So this issue is just him going bananas on the rest of the Corps, and then that takes you to 50, where he's on Oa, causing all kinds of chaos. And as a result of this book, I don't know how much more I want to go in detail on Emerald Twilight because obviously we're going to talk more about it. Basically, this issue leads into this issue. So
that's when
he wrecks the whole Corps here, and then once everyone else is wrecked, the only remnants is Kyle Rayner in one ring. So we'll get into more of that in a little bit.
The reason that DC decided to make this change was really Hal Jordan has been very consistent. Like they call him the greatest of all time and all this stuff, but over that period of time, like nothing really changed with Hal Jordan. He was always kind of the same guy. And obviously his book sales were slowly going down. So even though everybody loves Hal Jordan, at the time his books weren't selling. So they definitely wanted to do something drastic. And unfortunately that meant making Hal Jordan a villain and eventually killing him. But that kind of paved the way for them to make a younger, cool. I mean, you can see they don't really explain why Hal Jordan has the white hair yet.
Yeah.
Which you find out, in Rebirth. But they were like, oh, he's older, and no one really related to him anymore. So Carson would probably be better to ask about like the difference between Kyle Rayner and Hal Jordan that made Kyle Rayner a lot more likable.
Yeah.
Was his constructs.
Mm-hmm.
So DC definitely wanted to revamp and renew the love for Green Lantern, and that's kind of what DC went with, and Hal Jordan suffered for it.
Yeah, there is one more kind of major thing I do have to talk about, and that's just the state of DC Comics at the time. Kind of like, Thanatos just mentioned, sales were kind of down on certain books, but their formula at the time was, and you see it in almost every single key character book they had, is basically they would just like take a character out in one way, shape, or form, like the death of Superman. He gets killed off. Batman gets his back broken. Wonder Woman gets replaced. This kind of all stems from Crisis on Infinite Earths, in my opinion, where Barry dies and gets replaced by Wally West. that proved extremely successful for them. So they just started incorporating that all the way down the line. And I think this was, March of 94, it says. In 1994, unfortunately, I think they just looked at it and it's Green Lantern's turn. So we kind of need to revamp Green Lantern and then make him a whole new character. And then a couple years down the line, they even did the same thing with Green Arrow, going from Oliver Queen to Connor Hawke. So it's just something DC did with almost every one of their characters in the late 80s and early 90s too.
You know, looking back on it now, it's kind of shocking that you took this character and that you turn him into a supervillain, though, man. I mean, it kind of blows us away thinking of that Hal Jordan, this guy that we came onto later. If you go back 15, 20 years ago, this guy's a supervillain that's killing everybody, you know?
Yeah, they were wanting to do, and I didn't read comics at the time, I was too young, but I think it was Armageddon 2001. They were wanting to make the main bad guy that eventually, like, the big turn and twist was going to be Captain Atom, basically. And they just, for whatever reason, they didn't go 100% into that. So I think whoever had that idea was probably working on this title here. Like, yeah, it'd be cool just to see a good guy turn bad. Which, you know, I can't really think of too many other instances where this has happened and had this much long-term effect, because you have, March of 94 all the way up to December of 2004. So there was a 10-year gap right here.
Yeah, man. I mean, but the way that Geoff Johns puts it all together is just absolutely beautiful. And so, I mean, let's go into book one a little bit further. So the book starts off. It's called, I guess, issue 1 is the day before. That's what the trade's calling it here. And we've got Kyle Rayner going through the universe, and he sees these people that recognize his ring, and they start freaking out. And by the time his ring translates, which he doesn't know it can do that, which is crazy to me. By the time it translates, what these people are saying is Parallax is coming. And so right away, after this 10-year gap, you have this idea of Parallax, the supervillain that Hal Jordan turned into, is returning. And so it begs the question, who is Parallax, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so later on, you have this scene a couple pages in where Hal Jordan, and I'm going to show it here. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy. Check out Hal Jordan as Parallax there, guys. And you see that he's battling not only between Parallax, but he's also stuck with the Spectre.
And so this is the first time when, you know, for this longest time, everybody kind of just thought that Hal Jordan, you know, became Parallax, and that was his new supervillain title. Mm-hmm. And Geoff Johns, like, as soon as you see kind of that scene, and then Kyle Rayner saying, like, it has a name, Parallax is coming, and you're like, whoa, he's not talking about Hal Jordan. Like, there's something else. And it's kind of the first time that they indicate that Parallax is not just a name. Like, it's something completely different. And then in that scene, like, when I think it's kind of cool that Showcase 22 starts with Abin Sur crashing and all that stuff, and then Rebirth starts with Kyle Rayner crashing the spaceship. Like, it's the only time you see Green Lanterns in spaceships. But there's also the tomb that's sitting right there, and they don't really talk about that until later, but that's something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, man, for sure. That's my question. One of my questions for you guys was: is this the first time that we ever see Parallax? I mean, is this as this yellow entity that's Fear? In
as far as like him being, so they'll still consider the first appearance of Parallax as, like, I think, what is it? Is it 50? Green Lantern 50?
Yeah, I think it's 50.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember I want to say maybe it was 0 Hour Ones, the first time I remember him actually referring to himself as Parallax. Because I think it might have been issue 1 or 0. I kind of just binge read them all real quick. Yeah, it might be this splash panel right here where he's just like, I'm Parallax. So this might have been the first time he referred to himself as Parallax.
According to CGC, it's Green Lantern 50.
Oh, okay. I'll have to flip through that and see. I mean, he was definitely had the same outfit and everything.
Yeah, I remember reading that is the first time that I remember thinking, like, where he calls himself Parallax. So, but I think they call it the first appearance without him actually naming himself.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
That might be the first time that he actually calls himself Parallax.
Make the Snake says, "We are Parallax," man. That, oh man, it's just creepy the way that these guys are fighting over Hal's soul. So, as somebody again that didn't grow up reading DC, who the heck is the Spectre, guys? I've seen a little bit about him. I don't know much, so I need some enlightenment here.
Whoopty Bird compared the Spectre to Ghost Rider.
Really?
Which
I can see
the comparison. So the Spectre is pretty much just like a vengeance spirit. Like, I don't really know like how else to describe him. He doles out justice.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Spectre guy either, but yeah, he seems to be almost that he's like a very magical being. He has a lot of magical power, obviously. So usually every single big event there is, whether it be Infinite Crisis, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and even in Zero Hour, there's always someone begging Spectre like, "Hey man, we're in a lot of trouble this week. Can you please help us?" And sometimes, 99 times out of 100, he'll just be like, "Nope, I'm good. See ya, bye." Until something really, really bad happens that demands vengeance, and then maybe he'll pop up and save the day. Like in Zero Hour, it finally took. I don't think it was Alan Scott. I'm trying to think of who it was. One of the JSAers finally like, "You know what? I'm getting ready to die. Help us." And he respected him enough to finally step in and help against Parallax, basically. So yeah, I mean the chat's putting it in there. Alex Comic Order says it's God's vengeance, and even TJ, he says God's vengeance on Earth. So that's pretty much the perfect answer right there.
Is when you finally see when like they're at that ball game, you get introduced to Guy Gardner and John Stewart.
Yeah.
John Stewart is a Green Lantern again, and then Guy Gardner is the Warrior. And they're at that baseball game, and they're not expecting Hal Jordan to show up, but he does. And that's when people around him start asking, like telling them their truths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
And that's just a part of him being the Spectre is that people are like, Guy Gardner tells him that he cheats on his taxes and stuff. So that obviously and I got to go because this game is going to be ruined,
Yeah.
At this point, you're not sure because Hal Jordan's back, but how? And he's the Spectre, and he's also whatever that other being is that you saw earlier. So it's kind of at this point you're a little confused. At least I was at the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not knowing who the Spectre really is, other than what the clues the book gives me that he's the spirit of vengeance,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of trying to figure out who Parallax is and how Hal came back. It got me excited to go back and read Emerald Twilight. And I started reading Zero Hour today and didn't get through it much because I had some stuff to do. But man, I can't wait to read more of that. So now we got to figure out how the heck did his body get put in the sun, and when did he become one with the Spectre? Do you guys know that?
So I think before we get into that, there's actually because I think that's more in what the next, the Enemies Within.
Yeah, it's the Enemies Within.
There's some cool scenes in this one. I love when he cuts off Black Hand's hand, and you see this, it's the Spectre, but that's Parallax's face.
Yeah.
And I thought that was that is creepy. Which goes on to a bunch of stuff starts happening, some weird stuff at the end of book 1 where you see that happens, and then Green Arrow is kind of like, what's going on? And then the Gardner, his warrior alien species, starts freaking out. And I also think it's kind of cool that they have a Green Lantern bar in New York City.
Right?
I would love to go there.
Good old Guy Gardner Warrior number 30. I remember that gatefold cover where you have to open the doors of the bar.
And then suddenly Coast City is growing itself back, it starts reappearing.
Yep.
And during that whole time, the Justice League starts showing up. You see Wonder Woman, Power Girl, Alan Scott, Superman. And that's when Batman starts having his suspicions of, oh my God, Hal Jordan, like all these things are pointing to Hal Jordan being back. And you have to think for the Justice League, the last time they saw Hal Jordan, he was killing everybody. Or like, I guess at Final Night, he tried to redeem himself. But like as far as Batman is concerned, he was a villain. So that's kind of where his suspicions are going. And that's when Jon Stewart, I love the artwork that Ethan Van Sciver did on on this scene when Jon Stewart is defending Batman. Because one of Jon Stewart's biggest traits, which I love about him, is the fact that if he decides to trust you, he will stand by that no matter what. Like that is his thing. And he trusts Hal Jordan. And so that's why he defends him so hard against Batman. And I love how he tells Batman exactly how it is. Like, what are you? Hal Jordan saw you for what you are. Behind like the money and the mask, like you're just a man. And I'm like, yeah, I hate you, Batman.
Yeah, I do have 2 notes about what we just talked about. So number 1, Ethan Van Sciver, he put so many minute details into all 6 of these issues, but the one I wanted to highlight for issue 1, I don't know how well it's going to come out of my camera, where Spectre / Hal / Parallax is kind of disappearing into the void after he kind of dusts Black Hand's hand. Doesn't that logo look kind of familiar that he's disappearing into?
Yep.
It's the logo of fear. So before you, like, why are we like 24 issues deep until the Sinestro Corps War, basically? So you're already seeing Geoff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver incorporate these logos that they come up with for the whole Emerald Spectrum as early as Rebirth number 1. The second note, go ahead.
I didn't see that before, so I love
Yeah, it's a cool little detail, and there's so many of those coming up in these next 6 issues. I do want to
like introducing Black Hand was not very important. Introducing William Hand or William what is who am I thinking of? Why did I say William? That is Black Hand. Hector Hammond.
Yeah.
There's just little glimpses of the villains that are going to come in the future.
Yep. Because, Black Hand, his main arc's a long time away. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is Batman around this time. So they're also gearing up for Infinite Crisis at this point. And, I mean, that was years in the making, too. So Batman's state of mind at this point. Batman doesn't trust anybody. And we also have to talk about Identity Crisis when it comes to Batman. He kind of just found out he got mind-wiped by Satana when there was this whole thing with Dr. Light going on in that Brad Meltzer run. So after that, Batman, he trusts no one, and he's in the middle of creating the OMAC project, which is basically like his solution in case any of these heroes decide to go rogue again. So it's kind of a good timing that, Hal is back, because that's the ultimate reason he's thinking about creating the OMAC project and going into that. And Alex says Brother Eye, baby. So he's programmed Brother Eye, and we're getting ready to see if you were to follow Infinite Crisis, even you're getting ready to see the repercussions of Batman's behavior even in this.
Tim, did you have any questions about this this issue?
Nothing on here. No, not really in this page.
We were kind of, Cwood just covered it, but both of us were like, man, why is Batman such a butt right now? Like, I'm a huge Batman fan. I mean, he's numero uno for me.
Yeah.
And after, us reading this, we're like, man, but it's cool. Alex, the comic hoarder, what's up, brother? He pointed it out. And it's such a cool scene when he's like, without fear, you're nothing. And so Hal does not fear you. You know what I mean? Like,
great.
I mean, it's just, that was pretty epic.
My last point for issue number 1 was just to kind of overview because when I first read this, I'm like, okay, where was Guy Gardner for all this? Where was Jon Stewart for all this? And just like really quick. So Guy Gardner, after Emerald Twilight, after the Green Lantern Corps kind of went away, he ended up stealing Sinestro's ring, and he was using that for a while before he transitioned completely to Warrior, which uses his like Voldarian powers. So he can pretty much shapeshift. Like that's why you see him shapeshifting.
Yeah.
He can shapeshift into like any weapon. He can weaponize himself pretty much in any way necessary. So that was kind of where he's been this whole time, and he's still the Warrior, which is terrible. Like, look at his, it is awful. Like, nobody read Warrior. And then John Stewart, through this whole time, there's kind of like that Green Lantern mosaic, which I've never read. I can't, like, I don't even, I just looking at the covers, I'm like, I don't want to read that. But John Stewart, after the Green Lantern Corps collapsed, he was recruited into the Dark Stars by the controllers. And when Kyle Rayner ended up going off planet for a long time, that's when he went and convinced John Stewart to wear the ring again. And that's when John Stewart joins the Justice League.
Okay.
So he's been the Earth Green Lantern while Kyle Rayner was off planet.
You know what, man? Something that I just thought about, because Batman's my favorite.
For now.
I know, right? He deduced what Parallax was trying to do. You know, he's thinking that it's Hal, and that Hal's back, and that Hal's just trying to take over the Spectre as Parallax to become stronger, which obviously is not the truth. I mean, by the time this is over, we know the opposite. But Parallax was using Hal to get to Spectre to be able to do exactly what Batman deduced, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was sitting there, you know, thinking about it right now as you're talking, I'm like, man, Batman knows everything. Even though he's a big jerk, he knows it, man. He knows it.
No, I do highly recommend reading Infinite Crisis if you ever get time. It's one of my favorite stories ever as well. And you do get to see, it's also written by Geoff Johns, so you kind of get to see Batman redeem himself a little bit. But you also do get to see him hit rock bottom, too, in the midst of all that. So one of my favorite Green Lantern Batman scenes actually comes from Infinite Crisis. I think it's either issue 6 or 7, where, you know, the world's gone to crap. There's a lot of bad things happening. And there's just they're flying to go fight Brother Eye in the Beetle ship. And you see a character whistling off screen, "Take me out to the ball game." And it's Hal Jordan after he's came back. And, you know, everyone's afraid and tensions are running high. And Hal Jordan's just sitting in the back of the ship whistling, having a great time. It always makes me laugh every time because he's the man with no fear.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Hey, so TJ just said that he had some tornado sirens go off. So he's going to go seek some shelter, I guess. Be safe, TJ.
Yeah, stay safe, TJ.
Yeah, so I haven't read that. We haven't read that. So that comes after this?
Right after Rebirth. I think they came out almost at the same time, actually.
That's a huge story. And it introduces you to Superboy Prime, which is holy crap. Apart from Sinestro, Superboy Prime to me is like one of my favorite supervillains. That dude is a monster.
Wait, Superboy Prime is a villain?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a lot to learn.
And you have to read about him being a villain before we get into the Sinestro War.
Okay, so we'll do that then. And that's
there you make him read Crisis.
Is that the one where they introduced the new Blue Beetle for the first time?
That's Infinite Crisis, yeah.
Okay, cool. I had them, and then I never read them, and I put them in my mystery boxes. So now I'm gonna have to go.
Whoops.
All right. Let's try to get back on track here with I think we're still on issue 2, where all this kind of like detective work is going on, trying to figure out where's Hal Jordan, what's he doing, what's he up to, and then you get to see my beautiful Zatanna do some magic of her own to find out where he's at, and he's having a heart-to-heart with Carol Ferris, who has been retcon. I feel like at this point, Geoff Johns, to just kind of lay a solid foundation, full-blown retconned her as Star Sapphire. Like,
yeah,
it makes it seem like she was never Star Sapphire. That hasn't happened yet. And now she's married and all this other stuff, and her and Hal obviously have this love thing going on.
That bummed me out so bad.
Yeah.
She's married? Like, oh, man.
Yeah. But then you see when Zatanna finds out where they're at, like the entire Justice League shows up, like everyone, because they are ready to fight Parallax, because that's how OP Parallax is. He is like a Omega level threat.
Yeah, he was ending time and space from both ends in 0 hour.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
And you see like Wonder Woman just like, we need to ask you some questions. Like, are you here to destroy the world? And that's like right at that time in this story where Jon Stewart blows the crap out of Superman.
That shocked me, man. I was like, all right, this guy's about to get owned. And then Jon Stewart just shoots right through his eyes, man, and takes him out.
Well, there was a while in where it was canon that Green Lanterns could, like, their constructs could mimic anything.
Uh-huh.
So like they could pretty much make a bullet made of construct kryptonite.
No way.
Yeah.
That's epic, man.
I mean, you see it on I mean, it wasn't Hal Jordan, but you see it on the DC Presents 26, the cover of it.
Yeah.
Kind of has that where he's making that kryptonite. Superman's all jacked up. Like, that's what's happening on that cover of the first appearance of the Teen Titans.
That's right. I forgot about that, man.
And I think that's kind of been retconned a little bit. But I mean, in this, like, literally, you see Guy Gardner become a Green Lantern again. Jon Stewart goes crazy, and it's
Kilowog.
Yeah, Kilowog goes crazy. But they single-handedly were able to subdue each of the Justice League portions that were in the vicinity with them.
Yeah,
that's how powerful a Green Lantern is. Like, with the right incentives.
Yeah, they do have the power of fear flowing into the rings as well, so I'm sure that helps quite a bit.
Which is why you also see Kyle Rayner, who is talking about his ring is the only one that is not affected by the yellow impurity, which is why he wasn't affected by this whole parallax kind of infecting the yellow impurity, infecting Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, and Kilowog. Because
he came after that the impurity had already come out, right?
Yes.
Which we need to actually discuss. You know, well, we can do that in a little bit. I think it comes up. My question for you guys is, why is Alan Scott different than Hal Jordan and these guys? Because, I mean, isn't he the OG, the original Green Lantern?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So he came out in All American Comics 16. Very old, very expensive comic. But his powers are magic based. His ring, despite being a Green Lantern ring, is not the spacey scientific ring that came from Oa. But you see him a lot of it in this Rebirth story because he, in my mind, I always thought that Alan Scott, because his name matched, like, because he was a Green Lantern, the original Green Lantern, that he had almost felt like a sort of shame after having Hal Jordan, completely destroy the Green Lantern Corps and stuff. And so Alan Scott kind of still sees himself as one of them, even though he is not technically a part of their team. And that's why you see later in the story when he wants to see the Green Lantern Corps redeem themselves. And that's why he's not quite pivotal, but he stops the Justice League from interfering a lot later in the story.
Yeah, he is also, like, once again, Alex, the comic orders dropping the knowledge in the chat. He was also, in the Silver Age, he was the Earth 2 version of the Green Lantern. So pretty much all his Golden Age characters got incorporated into, what was then known as Earth 2. So they kind of just kept all the older characters there and kept them that way. So, yeah, Earth 2 has a lot to deal with Alan Scott still being involved in the storylines.
Yeah.
But his ring runs off of magic, correct?
Yes.
Cool. And theirs is more the power of science and Oa and the way that the Guardians set up the willpower of all the humans turning into energy, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool. So real quick, I just wanted to throw this out there. John's Comics with Kids is asking you a question, Tim. And he's saying, Tim, do you feel like there are limits to the Green Lantern power from what you've read thus far?
I don't think that there are any limits because, first of all, Hal Jordan, he almost made the whole city.
Yeah, an Emerald Toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Kind of weird though, right? Don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
he's running around like talking to people.
Yeah, because
Hey, bro,
that was
like
that scene for me is so messed up because those are his constructs. So every version of the people he knows he's talking to, they're in his head basically, and they come right out of his head. So it's kind of crazy the more you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
What would you make if you had a Green Lantern ring, Tim?
Something to make me Spider-Man.
I mean, you could probably imbue you could make yourself like a Green Lantern Spider-Man outfit. How cool would that be? Like a green with like all the spider webbing.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
nuts. And then you could like swing, but you're swinging construct webs.
that's awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can you guys tell who his favorite is?
Not Batman. That's the important thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So, Ganthet showing up. He's completely new to me, right? And when it's talking about how if he wanted to think, just with a thought, he could destroy the entire planet and rip it in half. I had no idea that he was that powerful.
Yeah, the Guardians are super powerful.
Yeah, you don't mess with the Guardians.
It's pretty wild to think like they consider themselves older than the universe. Like they were there before the Big Bang type, and you're like, what the hell? That's crazy. But yeah, super powerful, kind of special. And we met Ganthet in Secret Origin. And so in this one, in Emerald Twilight, you see he is the last surviving Guardian. Hal Jordan pretty much spares his life. So if that hadn't happened, like I don't even know how this all would have happened, because if that scene hadn't happened, there would be no Guardians left, and then the whole Kyle Rayner thing wouldn't have happened, and then this whole story was not possible. So good on that.
You got to respect Ganthet. You find I could be wrong, but if I remember right, he was the first Guardian to actually take his own name. Like the Guardians used to be it's almost like they were a hive mind, almost just this Omega, once again another Omega level super hive mind. But Ganthet, compared to the other ones, he was a free thinker. So he decided to name himself Ganthet, and he's always had a little bit different opinions than the rest of the Guardians of the Universe, which came in very handy during Emerald Twilight, because it was his idea to forge that one last ring to give to Kyle Rayner. So, but like Matt just said, if it wasn't for him, there would have been no Green Lantern Corps after Hal got done with it.
Yeah.
I actually have a question.
Shoot.
How did Green Lantern and Green Arrow, are they really good friends now, or what's happening?
So when you get a chance, definitely read. It starts with, I have the book in front of me somewhere.
Let's see it.
With this one.
Oh man.
So when Denny O'Neil, Green Lantern was kind of getting a little stale, and that's why they tried introducing Guy Gardner and all this stuff. But when Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams took over, and they did this, at this point, Oliver Queen was not rich. He'd lost everything. So he was a very urban warrior type. And Hal Jordan, having been in space for so long, and he came back, and him and Oliver Queen had this connection. And Oliver Queen was like, you've been in space a long time, solving space problems, but there's a lot of things going on here on Earth that you aren't aware of, and that you need to help. We can go around and fix this. So this is between number 76 through 87, and then 89, I believe, is that Denny O'Neil run. And they pretty much stay in small cities and fight. They try to solve issues about prejudice and drugs. And they talk about all these things that you didn't see in comics at the time, things that were very relatable for, the early 70s. And I think this connection between Hal Jordan and Oliver Queen has always been really strong. I would still say that Barry Allen is Hal Jordan's best friend.
Okay.
But obviously Barry Allen is dead.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's why Hal Jordan entrusted, you see, Oliver Queen has the ring from Hal Jordan. And Hal Jordan kind of gave it to him as a failsafe. Like, look, if anything ever happens and you are in dire need, like, use my ring, pretty much. So from all the way from 1970 is when their relationship really started. And it's a really good read when you get a chance.
Okay. Whoopty Bird's asking, are you jealous of Barry Allen, Thanatos? Not when you are Hal Jordan.
Not jealous of nobody.
There you go.
No, we didn't. Alex the Comic Hoarder is asking if we talked about how the Flash in the series is Wally West. Yeah, that's it. It took actually this read through was the first time I noticed, like, holy crap, that's Wally, not Barry.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, man. Like, so thank you for the knowledge because I didn't recognize that. Oh my gosh. That's Wally, man. That's not Barry.
Oh my gosh.
Cool, Alex. With all this knowledge, we got to get you in here, man. All right.
His time is coming.
Yeah, I was gonna say they get some moments together. It's a little further down the line than you probably want, but you'll finally get to see those Hal and Barry moments.
I just want to point out some of this artwork where, like, Kilowog, like, breathing out willpower is I was trying to think of, like, is it in Rebirth where they talk about the scene where, like, they talk about how Guy Gardner's ring crackles?
Yes. Yes. It's coming up.
Okay. Because, like, I love when they're like, Kilowog's willpower is the only one that makes a sound.
Yep.
Like, damn.
Yeah, and then coming up too. I mean, I'll show the panels if I remember when we get to them. But I mean, as you see each Green Lantern, when you see Kyle eventually when he's back to full power, you can see like all of the artistry in his constructs. When you see John Stewart, you can see that he was an architect, and every construct he has is built from the ground up. It's not just like a false shape. Like he builds his constructs, and like I said, Hal's ring's always like sparking. He's just spewing out willpower, ready to fight and ready to go. And then meanwhile, I think it's either the next issue, it might be issue 4 actually, with the Green Arrow using the ring, which we can wait and talk about that when that happens, because that's probably my favorite scene.
It's so good, man.
A really good quote in Green Lantern 76. There's a part where they are talking to a regular civilian guy, and this guy talks to Hal Jordan. That's when he says, "I've been reading about you, how you work for the Blueskins." It's a black gentleman saying this, how you work with Blueskins, and how on a planet someplace that you helped out the Orange Skins and you've done considerable for the Purple Skins. And he talks about, like, what have you done for the Black Skins? Like, what have you done for anyone on our planet, guy? Like, thanks, Hal. You haven't done diddly. And it's such a cool scene, and it's so deep.
Yeah, man. What's up, Miss Melody Green? How you doing? All right, let's see. Alex the Comic Hoarder threw out a Guy Gardner quote. Hal would find the prettiest girl in the room and have her wrapped around his finger like the ring. No fear. No fear.
Not any.
When Tim goes out to the dances, I'm going to give him a Green Lantern ring, and that way he can go out there and feel the same way.
I feel like Grant Morrison remembered that in his issue 1 of Green Lantern. If anyone's read that. In this
issue, after the fight between Hal Jordan or Kyle Rayner and Ganthet and Kilowog, you finally get to see the beast itself. Like the beast rears its head, and you finally see the yellow entity as like living fear, the personification of fear.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into future stuff with Green Lantern, because now we know that willpower is its own thing. So where's the entity for willpower? And it kind of implies that there's more, that there are these living entities.
No way.
And that, like, he is terrifying. Like, that was living inside of Hal Jordan.
That's great. Yeah, so let's talk about that, man, because Tim was pointing out to me when we were reading it that Kyle is is scared to use the ring. And he doesn't want to use it. And every time he does, he can hear Parallax talking to him and saying like things like, you're weak and I'm going to take over you. And he's showing him everybody that he's, Guy Gardner and everybody else that he's taken over. And so, I mean, I guess from reading the story, we find out that Parallax, which, like you said, is the embodiment of fear, was trapped by the Guardians, and he was put into the central power battery, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's crazy is the fact that the Guardians say, I don't remember where, but they talk about how like they put him in the central power battery forever ago, and then they wiped everybody's memories of him ever existing, including themselves. So they had no idea he was in there. And his power just kind of slowly seeped out and infected people, infected Hal Jordan. And a big reason that, like in Emerald Twilight, you see the Guardians release Sinestro. And so you're now like, Sinestro was in the central power battery, like as a punishment. So he was in there with Parallax, which kind of all comes to fruition here towards the end of this story.
So Sinestro is kind of the one that caused everything to happen.
This was a big, once he was imprisoned in the central power battery, and he obviously got to meet Parallax, and like, wow, that was unexpected and kind of awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that imprisonment. And that's when Sinestro kind of like, I think they game plan together, and I think Sinestro's hatred for Hal Jordan kind of pointed Parallax in that direction, knowing that he was the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the biggest like middle finger to the Guardians and to the Green Lantern Corps, to turn their most powerful member again, because obviously Sinestro was the most, like, previously the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So to have it infect Hal Jordan was a big part of Sinestro's plan.
Yeah, he even gave him the gray temples that he had in the 90s.
Yep. And so, yeah, and you also figure out that was like Parallax is the reason why he aged so much. And I mean, it was just the whole Geoff Johns just orchestrating that whole spin on all this was just amazing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Even with the gray hair, it's because Parallax had started to creep into his heart, creep into his power, creep into everything about him, and was just destroying him physically and emotionally at the same time, just slowly eating away,
So
and
by the time he got done fighting Mongol, he was done for.
Yep. Because all the anger, all the hatred, the fear finally took over, because he's like, what's going to happen next? How can I prevent something like this from happening? And I can't, and that's how Parallax was able to latch on to his soul and take over him, which is crazy. So I guess the yellow impurity, the whole time, then Geoff Johns explains it as Parallax being inside there, the central power battery, and Sinestro waking him up. I mean, was the impurity there because he was awoke, or was because he was just in there?
Well, the Guardians, I believe they trapped him in there to imprison him, because they couldn't kill him. They didn't know what else to do with him, because he's the embodiment. I mean, can you really kill the embodiment of fear?
Can't.
Probably not. So I guess the best bet was, we have this giant power battery. Let's just put him in it, because that's the only thing that's going to contain him. And unfortunately, that created that yellow impurity for such a long time.
Man, that's
which
awesome.
is good. Now that that's out, we don't have to worry about that anymore.
For this was like a huge thing in the Green Lantern mythos, is the fact that for the longest time you thought the impurity was just yellow.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, well, he just affected by yellow, but then it becomes yellow is the color of fear. And so it's not necessarily the color that's affecting them. It's the fact that
it's fear.
It's fear. And which is like, it's the exact opposite of willpower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over here it shows how Sinestro and Hal Jordan are fighting, and if you notice, Sinestro has the ring on his right hand, but it's supposed to be on his left hand, right? And then towards the end of the comic,
Talking louder.
when Sinestro comes back, he has it on his left hand. So
That's actually really funny. Look at the scene where Green Arrow, like Sinestro has Kyle Rayner on the ground, and he's like stuck there. He's holding up his left hand in one scene, and then he's got his right hand up in the next. Like in that same panel, it's left hand and then right hand. But he's using it left. Oh, and then on the page before that, it's left hand, and then one above it, it's his right hand. So Ethan Van Sciver kind of a little mistake there. But for the most part, it's his left hand.
Tim was thinking that maybe since Sinestro this whole time knew that if Hal Jordan killed him, that would kind of send him over the edge as well. He was thinking maybe it was like a fake construct or something when Hal broke his neck in Emerald Twilight.
Oh, such a cool scene.
That's some Joker Dark Knight Returns stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy good.
How did you like when Green Arrow fires off that arrow?
That was literally one of the best scenes in the story.
Like me, I probably haven't reread this for probably 5 or 6 years, but of all the scenes in these books, for some reason that one stands out the most to me, just because Green Arrow, obviously he's a great superhero, he's a tough guy, but when it comes to just firing one green arrow using the lantern ring, it just sapped all of his strength and will just to fire that one arrow. So it shows how much willpower our main 4 Green Lanterns actually have to use their constructs and do what they do. So it just shows how powerful all of the Green Lanterns are, even without the Green Lantern ring.
Yeah. I love that panel that's right here. I mean, this whole pages are amazing if you look at them.
Beautiful.
I mean, there's the arrow. But when they're talking down here and explaining exactly what you just said, I mean, that got me super emotional. He's like, forcing your willpower into the ring, asking it to give your thoughts life. Is that what it's like? And then Kyle's like, every time. And then Oliver's like, damn.
Another cool art piece in this is this splash page right here. We were talking earlier about how John Stewart uses his architecture and his constructs, and Guy Gardner, he's sparking, like they're already drawing that detail into the characters.
Yeah.
As you can see here. So, John Stewart's a little bit more blocky, and Guy Gardner, he's a little bit, he just looks crazy. So I do like all the little details.
And that's where Ganthet removes the impurity from them. He kind of heals them ish. So now you have 3 Green Lanterns and Ganthet versus Parallax. But then you also have the entire Justice League that are finally like, yes, it's you. It's you.
Well, except for one jerk with the pointy ears.
Yeah.
You know what? It got me. What got me was when Parallax is going after Alan Scott, and he's gonna like rip his heart out with his teeth, and then right there, talk Cwood so they can see it.
Yeah, I mean, here it is right here. Of all Green Lanterns, Alan Scott's the one going directly after Parallax. And if Alan Scott didn't feel fear before, he probably did in this panel.
Especially when he yells, "Your heart will be mine."
Yeah.
That's so terrifying.
And then once again, even in the back of Parallax's throat, they have the logo of fear drawn into his throat.
Yeah, man.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
But I love how Hal breaks through at that point on the next page. He's like, no more. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done with you. And he breaks through Parallax and brings himself to the forefront, brings his soul out of there, man.
And I think this is a good point for the fact that the Spectre knew that Hal Jordan, obviously by himself, was not able to overcome Parallax at the time. And so that was a big reason why he kind of imbued his spirit with the Spectre. So that way he could have a fighting chance
Yeah.
Because he was in deep. Like, Parallax had his claws in deep, and he needed that extra help, the help of a god almost, to fight back.
Well, when Parallax is finally purged from him, and then the Justice League sees that, and everybody, they're like, that thing was inside hell? Are you kidding me right now?
What's awesome is the fact that this entire time, it's like you find out, like, that's not even Hal Jordan. That's literally just the spirit of Hal Jordan.
Yep.
Like, in all of this whole thing, like, it's wild.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I was just going to talk about, I really like the scene where, because now you know that the body of Hal Jordan is in that tomb that Kyle was trying to protect.
Yeah.
And Hal Jordan finally gets free, and he's now just a spirit.
Yep.
And Ganthet is like, follow my light. Like, I'll show you the way. And I love, like, the scenes of like Abin Sur, Tomari and them, like,
yeah, man,
like, you overcome great fear. And then he talks to his dad, and then you see his hair start to, like, go back to normal, and it's just, it's so great.
I ain't gonna lie, man, I sobbed in that scene. I'm getting emotional now thinking about it. Because the fact that he sees Abin Sur, and it goes all the way back to when they first met, and he gives him the ring, and he says, you were chosen because you will overcome great fear. He's literally talking about he will overcome Parallax in this moment.
Dang.
You know?
Think of that.
Yeah, and I didn't either. That's cool.
It just gave me goosebumps all over my entire body. And then he sees his dad, and his dad's like, remember in Emerald? I'm going to cry. In Emerald Twilight, when he's like, all I want you to do is tell me you're proud of me. That's all I want you to do, Dad. Like, and he has his fake father in front of him with his ring. And then here he literally sees his dad's spirit as he's going to a spirit world to disappear and die. And his dad's like, you wear it right, son. Now fly home. Like, there it is. Everything.
Yeah.
It's like, I couldn't handle it, man. It's crazy good.
And in that last moment of, like, it's all about Sinestro's about to kill Green Arrow and Kyle Rayner.
Yep.
And, like, when the ring slips off his finger and goes to Hal Jordan, like, oh my God.
So good. So good. Yeah, man. Get the heck away from them. Like, it's too epic, man.
Got like that 10-pack.
You like that 10-pack?
And the kind of funny note here is, because I just opened up issue 5, you got to go think about what's going through Kyle Rayner's head, because the entire 10 years he's been a Green Lantern, like, Hal Jordan's been nothing but bad news. So what is going through his head now that he's got Sinestro? Sinestro's got him on the ropes, and now Hal Jordan's back from the dead. So he's probably just like, what have I done?
Yeah. Man.
Because there's actually a scene coming up very soon at the beginning of issue 5 where they basically, it's almost like they meet for the very first time.
They do.
You kind of don't really think about it, and then they finally just shake hands. I'm like, I'm more or less the real Hal Jordan. Thank you for keeping the mantle.
So when I read Final Night today, they do meet. They meet at the Source Wall, but it's Parallax Hal Jordan meeting Kyle Rayner.
Sure.
That's when Kyle Rayner is telling him, like, please come save Earth. But then this one definitely has the feels. Like, it really feels like they're finally meeting each other.
Yeah, exactly.
First time.
You know, I love this whole idea too of them speaking to each other, because, like, Hal's like, let's go kick butt, and Kyle's like, I can't. Like, you don't know me. I'm not that guy you think I am. And then Hal tells him, like, wait, time out. Like, you just like, what do you say? Let me read it because it's too good. He's like, I'm not a guy that can overcome great fear or whatever. And then Hal says, fighting from one end of the universe to the other, risking your life to help someone who everyone else wrote off, facing Sinestro one-on-one and living to talk about it. What do you think you've been doing, Kyle? Hiding under your drawing board? Like, man, that was another feels moment. when he just tells Kyle, like, dude, you've been doing it this whole time. All it takes is you standing up the way you've been doing it, and you're exactly what you need to be.
What's actually really cool about Kyle Rayner is the fact that you have to think he was the only Green Lantern other than like John Stewart towards the end, but John Stewart stayed on Earth.
Yeah.
There are 3,800 sectors. 3,600 sectors. That's what Kyle Rayner's job was for the last 10 years, was literally the job of 7,200 lanterns.
It's
He
crazy.
was just patrolling all through space. So that's why you'll see a lot of guys who grew up in the 90s, like, they love Kyle Rayner. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah, that's another reason I really do respect Green Lantern Rebirth, because usually when you have your story where your original character comes back, usually the newer version of that character is kind of just shoved toward the wayside.
Yeah.
But here, especially in this issue, Johns really does Kyle Rayner justice. He basically is saying, like, he's not a pushover. He's a phenomenal Green Lantern. We're just bringing the one back that you really liked in the past along with that. So I definitely enjoyed that aspect of Rebirth.
After that moment, reading the book, I'm like, okay, I need to go buy all Kyle stuff. Like, I seriously had so much respect for him, thinking about what you just said, that he's the lone lantern taking care of the entire universe. You know, I want to know more about this guy.
There is another cool scene I kind of just glossed over that I kind of forgot about. I think it's on page 3 where Sinestro kind of gets the jump on Hal Jordan. You know, he just got out of a coffin. Of course he's going to have the jump on Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
He throws him out of a moon base.
Yeah.
And his response is just a big old grin because he knows he's back in the saddle fighting Sinestro. It's the best spot he could be in. So you just see that excitement on his face right there.
Man, that's awesome.
You have a bunch of like secret origin stuff. And this, like, I love Sinestro versus Hal Jordan fights. They are always epic. There's always a lot of emotion in it. They talk so much trash. And yeah, for that to end, and then Kyle Rayner, and then my favorite part in probably the whole series is now Ganthet, one of the most powerful beings already in the universe, is now has Parallax in him. And Hal Jordan shows up, and when he says, "Light him up," and then he says, "Then listen for fear, remember fear." It's no longer overcome fear. It's know that it's there and accept that it's there. Like, you have to remember fear now, not just overcome it.
Yeah.
And like that scene right there, light him up.
Yep.
Like, he immediately falls into his natural leadership position.
Yeah. Heck yeah. And then it makes me love Kyle even more because Kyle's been doing that this whole time. That's the only reason the ring didn't take over him, you know?
Yeah. I love
It's cool.
Guy Gardner, when he's like, "Remember fear," what kind of new science crap is that? Oh, freaking Guy Gardner, man.
Heck yeah, man.
And then Batman, of course. I love how Ethan Van Sciver's Batman's always kind of weird. Like, it's all flowy, but he always has him in this like super dark silhouette. Like, you rarely ever see him.
I love how Batman says, "As long as I'm standing, then you're not doing anything." So Green Lantern puts him on the floor.
Oh,
yeah, that scene where he just.
I didn't think about that, dude. That's pretty good.
It's a throwback from when it was in the Justice League Detroit era where Guy Gardner, we know how mouthy Guy Gardner is now. And in that, it was written by J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen. They wrote it so, Guy Gardner, everyone thought he was a jerk. So Batman just shows up one day. He can't stand Guy Gardner's mouth anymore. And one punch, Batman just knocks out Guy Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
So finally, the Green Lanterns get their comeuppance when Hal Jordan just knocks out Batman. That's why Guy Gardner's like, "Yeah, it took just one punch. Take that, Batman."
See Guy Gardner's face in that panel?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, "Yeah."
Heck yeah.
When Hal Jordan, like, he has that little boomerang thing, or like the rope attached to Hal Jordan's arm, and he just like pulses his willpower and snaps it all apart.
Oh, the best.
Like, oh man.
What else we got, man?
And that's when Alan Scott just like when the entire Justice League wants to interfere, and Alan Scott's like, give them their chance. Like, this is their chance for redemption, like right here. And I thought that was so cool. Like, he doesn't have to. Like, he has no connection to these guys other than a name, and he wants them to get their chance.
And then the next scene is, or the next page is when we have those panels that Cwood and you were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Where it breaks down everybody's, the way that they use their construct in their ring, you know?
And in a later book, they actually show like, I love these types of scenes where they have each one kind of doing their own thing. There's one later where they talk about, obviously these guys are space cops. Like, they're all kind of jacked in the head. They all have their own like PTSD and coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And there's a panel very similar to this where they show how each one of them kind of winds down and releases tension. And it's like, you're going to cry on that scene because it's like, it's deep.
Yeah, man.
I love Kyle Rayner when he's using his ring. Like, it's literally a hand drawing things.
Do you think that takes a little too much time, though?
I don't know. Maybe.
Depends on
I
how.
do like Kilowog sounding like a cannon every time he does something. I thought that was probably the coolest one.
I freaking love Kilowog.
Yeah.
And I like how they have the different scenes where they're all coming, like, you see all of their constructs kind of doing something to Parallax. And that bottom one, I'm assuming it's John Stewart's, the one that's like holding Parallax's mouth open.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God, that is. Oh, actually, that's Kyle Rayner. You can see him starting it in the top left, and then at the bottom right, it's complete.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't even see John Stewart in that panel. Unless they're both building the same construct, that'd be actually kind of a cool idea.
It's like John Stewart in the bottom one is locking.
Yeah,
can't do
you might be off to the right there.
Man, that's epic, man. And then when they're all fighting, they all are getting messed up, and Hal's the one that holds strong. And I love that in Brightest Day, in Blackest Night. I mean, that's just such a good panel right there.
I like how Guy Gardner is just like kind of like laughing at how they're all saying the same thing at the same time.
Yep. So good.
I have to admit, I really like Kyle Rayner's outfit in this. Is so great.
I don't know. I was always partial to the 90s, but I had this action figure as a kid, so I always loved it. I gotta admit.
His mask is so dumb.
Yeah, the crab mask. You're never gonna guess who that is.
Oh man.
I like how they give it to him again in the Sinestro War down the line.
But at the end, when they're all standing around and like Kyle Rayner's symbol is the only one that's just glowing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like, do you expect me to believe all of this? Quite honestly, I don't care.
Yeah, man.
I mean, he just witnessed it for himself. Like, Batman's not dumb. He literally just saw what came out of Hal Jordan and into Ganthet.
Yeah.
Like, that's evidence. I like how John Stewart kind of steps in, like, is that a problem? Like, you laid out again?
Yeah, because he's probably been taking orders from Batman more than he wants to in the last few years. Because after that Grant Morrison Justice League run, Batman, his knowledge and his abilities, they were pretty overpowered. Like, a lot of people would refer to him as Bat God. So you could definitely tell who's in charge of the Justice League. Unfortunately, it's not Superman or Wonder Woman. It's Batman at this point.
Yeah.
I asked everyone in the chat, like, who's their favorite Lantern, as we were looking at that panel with John Stewart and Kyle Rayner and Guy and Hal making their different constructs, So it looks like John says we voted earlier. John wins as most Johns do.
There was a lot of John Stewart earlier.
Yep.
Not a lot of Kyle Rayner, but I think that for the most part, people who've read this whole story, and for most Green Lantern fans, Hal Jordan typically takes the top, unless they were really into Kyle Rayner back in the day. You'll see Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner kind of share that second and third place role.
I'm Hal all the way, man.
Here, I got a question for you guys. After, and maybe this is more for you, Matt Thanatos, but after reading this, and you have all the knowledge that he doesn't have yet, but do you think, the John's run should this have just been issue number 1 of the entire run, or you think it's perfect that they just had the 6 issues and then they had the relaunch of the number 1 after this mini series? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I think it could have gone either way, but I think introducing this as a 6-part miniseries probably got more people involved, because like investing in 6 issues, I think it's a little easier when someone's like, "Oh, it's a miniseries," and you're like,
Sure.
"Okay, I can collect those 6 and decide if I want to continue with, like, if it starts again."
Yeah.
Versus like people that they're like, "Oh, it's starting a whole new series right now with number 1, and if by issue 3 they're not hooked, it's like it's game over." This felt like a complete story.
Yeah. My thoughts on it is kind of to Matt Boy, who had 7's point earlier, was there's a lot going on. Like, there's a lot you'd probably have to read prior to this. Like, we've talked about Emerald Twilight, 0 Hour, and Final Night. So I could see this being an extremely confusing read if someone's not caught up, on 90s DC.
Yeah.
So for this to be the 6-issue miniseries, and then you're going to No Fear with a fresh number 1, like, if you were starting there and somehow skip this, you'd probably be all right for the most part. You'd miss a few things, obviously, but it'd probably be an easier start to get into the next number 1 that's coming up for, basically all of us, I guess. So it's just a plain storyline with Hal Jordan coming up, and then you can go from there instead of having like, what is Parallax? Who's Kyle Rayner? What's the Spectre and all that stuff. So if you want to know that, you can read Rebirth. But if you somehow skip that and go into Green Lantern number 1, you probably won't. You could probably more subtly work your way into those questions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So overall, Tim, how did you feel about it?
I loved this comic.
Who as of now, like, because it's gonna, like, you'll see different parts and see different characters, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, I like it when he did that," and then you're gonna be like, "Oh, but I liked it when this guy did that." Like, who right now is your favorite Green Lantern?
Right now it's probably still Hal, but I'm kind of starting to like Kyle Rayner a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Nice.
And that's a good one. Be like, in the future, Kyle Rayner becomes crazy powerful.
The White Lantern, right?
Was that
White Lantern?
He gets the White Lantern. There's other things though that, like, even before the White Lantern that happened.
Just wait for that Sinestro Corps special.
Right. It gets crazy. Like, some people get some serious power ups, and then there's even, like, there's other Green Lanterns that come into play later. That, I mean, there's entire series based off of Green Lanterns that aren't even involved in this, and they're pretty powerful as well.
Yep.
Everybody's got their little quirks, and it's nice to have options, because based on your personality and how you think you might be as a Green Lantern, like, there's probably one of those 4 or 5 that you relate to the most.
In this page here, man, when they're trying to put Parallax down, I think this right here was my favorite.
Oh, when his eyes are lit up.
Yeah, man, he's got the Green Lanterns in his eyes, and then Parallax is like about to lose, and he just starts telling him all these lies. He's like, "You're weak, you're scared, give up now, give up." And then Hal's like, and he's like, "Give up, damn you." And he's like, "I don't know how." And like, that theme carried over from Rebirth for me. I love to look at heroes and read comics because these characters inspire me. And as I see Hal Jordan, just like, I don't know how to give up. It's not who I am, and it will never be. And that's why I'm going to beat you right now. I love that, man, because it makes me want to emulate that and be more like that, And so that was one of my favorite panels in the entire story.
Yeah, it was. Chris Mitchell says he needs a screenshot because we never agree on anything. But he talks about how Kyle is the Peter Parker of the Green Lantern universe at this point in the Green Lantern story, and
Okay,
Yeah.
my favorite.
I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
You know how the Guardians are supposed to like have no fear at all? Well, how does Parallax get into what's his name again?
Ganthet.
Ganthet.
Well, I mean, you could tell in Secret Origin, you know how we talked about how the entire Oa was pretty much made of yellow.
Mhm.
Like, they already erased their memories of Parallax. They completely had no idea that he was there, he existed. So just like Hal Jordan, Parallax influenced the Guardians just as much, which is why they were always so afraid, and which is why they were so controlling of the Green Lantern Corps and restrictive of what they were allowed to do, because they didn't want the Green Lantern Corps to get too powerful, because you know you don't want your soldiers like mutinying on you. So
Like hell.
there was definitely fear in the Guardians.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the Guardians, like you'd think like they're like the ultimate good guy force. There's not a impurity among them, but the more you kind of get to know the Guardians, the more they kind of come off as just they have very large egos basically. So sometimes if they say like, oh, we can't be affected by that, that may not necessarily be true. So a guy like Ganthet can, unfortunately, Ganthet has the most minimal ego, by the way, of all of the Guardians, in my opinion, but he's still susceptible to, being infected by Parallax. So yeah, the more you get to know the Guardians, sometimes the less you kind of want to trust them.
Yeah, it's true.
And Ganthet, of all the Guardians, is also the most emotional.
Yes.
So if anyone was going to be susceptible of them all, like Ganthet shows the most trust, the most will, the most fear. Like he is the most human-like of all the other Guardians. And you'll see that because his relationship with Hal Jordan and them is always going to, it's very, he's more of a friend and a mentor than he is a true Guardian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Marco808 said Rebirth was a great mini for new readers of Green Lantern as the books go a little bit in depth into Hal's awesome character persona. I definitely agree with that, man. Love that. And then Man from Beantown, I agree. Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps series was what really started making me fall in love with Hal Jordan and wanting to know more about him, and I'm so bummed out it ended. And Michael, Comic Geek McD was asking earlier, guys, and we didn't get to it, but he's saying, what do you think about Grant Morrison and his run? For me, I dropped it from my pull list. Couldn't stand it.
You want to go first, Thanatos?
It's different. It's so different because we've spent, think about it, like, I mean, from 2004 all the way to 2000, like mid 2000 or like 2012 or 2013, we had Geoff Johns' run, and then we had Cullen Bunn's run, or was it Rob Venditti?
It was Venditti, I believe.
And then we got like, and I don't remember even who did the last one. Was it still Venditti? That was.
I think he was on. I feel like Jurgens finished it up completely before Morrison, of all people.
So
Yeah,
it's followed this. Like, this story has not ended. Between New 52, between Rebirth, like this continuity never changed.
It's one of the few that didn't.
They never rebooted it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, could you imagine trying to untangle this? Like, trying to, like, okay, we'll just start fresh. Like, you can't. And so this is what I'm used to. And this is the writing that I'm used to. And I think that Grant Morrison's run, I kind of look at it kind of the same way that I look at reading something like Will World or Earth One, almost like its own entity, like its own side story. I've been enjoying it. The artwork, I think, has really grown on me. At first, like, it was kind of trashy. I mean, it just looked old. But starting on, like, I think issue 3, is when I feel like he really kind of figured out like a mix between what really worked for modern Green Lantern and his own style of artwork. But it's gotten a lot better. And And then I like Grant Morrison's story. It's always interesting. Like it's so off the wall and different, and I don't mind it.
Yeah, for me, the Grant Morrison, which I still need to read the latest issue. I was actually planning on reading that tonight. But I mean, it's a slow burn so far. When it comes to some of the best Grant Morrison stories, especially the one that comes to mind is Animal Man. Month to month, it can be pretty slow going, but once it amps up, like if he can actually go into prime Morrison mode, I have high hopes still. So I'm like, there's been a few issues that have been mundane, let's face it, but I'm really hoping, with Morrison, he usually has a long-term plan. So I'm hoping, in 20, 25 issues, we're like, man, that Grant Morrison run, it's really good. It did the same thing for New X-Men too, where that was it was consistent. It wasn't a phenomenal read until maybe almost the next to last story at the end. I won't talk about the very last story in the new Morse or the New X-Men Morse run because it was terrible, but the rest of the run was really good. But so far I have high hopes for it because I do like Grant Morrison.
It's definitely a lengthy read.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, so Bob World just sent this picture to my boy. You guys check this out. It's really cool, man.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, right?
You should 100% have someone make that outfit for a Comic-Con.
Right?
It's so cool.
Too cool, man. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that, brother. That's awesome, man.
That's amazing.
Your screensaver. Too cool.
But yeah, I guess just to sum up, like why I was so happy you guys picked me to be on Rebirth. Like we talked about the other stories about how Hal, he had gray temples for no reason, the yellow impurity stuff, him just going completely evil out of nowhere after Coast City was destroyed, the Spectre stuff, him getting sacrificed in Final Night, 0 Hour. You take all of that insanity and you put it in a consistent 6 issues of comic books. Like, I will forever respect Geoff Johns for making a really good read out of Rebirth because he didn't have a lot of good stuff to work with looking at it on paper like that. Not to mention everything he did after Rebirth, which you guys are going to talk about. And I cannot wait to see those episodes, these episodes of this show, because it only gets better, in my opinion. So I really can't wait to reread Sinestro Core War. I think that's my personal favorite, but just the sheer amount of stuff Geoff Johns, it was just like, he dumped out a giant puzzle and he actually finished the puzzle with Green Lantern Rebirth. It's probably the best way I could put it. So I will forever respect Geoff Johns for making this comic book.
We got to agree with you on that one too, because for us, we didn't know about that stuff except for Emerald Twilight,
Mm-hmm.
But now that we've read this story, we're like, oh my gosh, like there's so much that we need to go read that it's kind of worked the opposite way for us, where now he's opened up more of the lore for us and gotten us even more excited about things that came out in the past. And he did it so beautifully that, I can't wait to go purchase all that other stuff and read it, man.
Yeah. Because there's a lot. You guys are probably, I'm assuming you guys are going to branch into multiple series because you're almost going to have to read Green Lantern Corps as well, which they do a phenomenal job on that book too. Even though Geoff Johns doesn't write most of that, it's still a very good supplement to his run.
Yeah, I feel like they did a good job with Green Lantern Corps in the sense that it's not like a required read.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like if you're playing Red Dead Redemption and you're just following the main storyline.
Sure.
That's reading Green Lantern. But if you want to do all the side quests and all, like, you're a completionist and you want to see all of the stuff that's going on outside of the main storyline, then you also want to read Green Lantern.
Yeah. And then I will say this too, because Boatwright Family and Comics says I'm breaking the bank trying to get all this stuff read. If you guys get the DC streaming app, they have been adding all of this stuff to the comic book portion. So that's actually how I read Rebirth. Pretty much the entire Johns run, you can read, like, if you just wanted to pay that monthly fee, it's all on there now.
Sweet. I didn't know that. I have it.
Yeah, they just added it.
Yeah, I feel like they started with like not a lot, but like
they exploded in the comic part.
Series. Like,
they must have read my survey I filled out early on.
More comics, less TV shows.
Yes. See Marvel Unlimited.
But I have a question for the trivia if you want. Do you want me to send it to you first, Matt, to like have you look it over? I mean, it's pretty easy, but it applies to both Rebirth. It was in Rebirth.
Okay.
And it was in Emerald Twilight.
No, man, do it. I trust you, bro.
So if you guys weren't here for the very beginning, Matt and I both, we will be alternating sending this out to you. But if you are in the continental United States and able to get like Amazon Prime, like we will, whoever gets the answer correct first, we will be sending you guys the following trade paperback. So for our next issue trade that we're going to be going through will be No Fear with John's Comics with Kids. And if you are overseas, I think I've logged into amazon.co.uk before and shipped stuff to like the UK. I'm not too sure how like Canada works and stuff, but if anything, we can just PayPal you some funds to cover a trade. But so that's like what's about to happen. So my trivia question is, it was in here, it was in Rebirth, and it was also in Emerald Twilight. So it's something that probably happened a while back. How did Hal Jordan kill Sinestro?
Oh,
I know this one.
Who's gonna get it first?
Whoever writes it down first, you get the prize. So
I think Gray Man tried to answer the question in advance. He just wrote down 2814, like he thought you were gonna ask what sector was Earth. Nope, I think we got a winner.
Tommy gun.
With kindness.
Killed him with kindness. Oh my gosh.
Well, so did you guys all get the same person at the beginning?
Yeah, I got John.
Even though it was a question mark at the end because he's not sure.
Yeah, he's disqualified.
Broke his neck.
So I guess we got a second place with Comic Geek McD.
Yep.
Funny though. So, but do you already have No Fear, John?
You better. I mean,
We'll be on the show with us in 2 weeks.
yeah, he has the trade already.
Okay, so Comic Geek McD.
Nice.
You are overseas, so I will look it up on Amazon.co.uk because I believe you are not in the States, right?
Yeah, he's in Scotland.
Yeah. And he was saying earlier in the chat he's not a huge Green Lantern fan, but he said after watching this, it seriously makes him want to do his homework to get more Green Lantern stuff. Now he has to because you're going to give it to him.
Now you at least get to read No Fear.
It's over for you, bro. Now you're going to have to get a bunch of GL stuff.
Now, if you've read Rebirth, if you read No Fear, you're eventually at least got to stay on until Sinestro at this point.
Oh my God, Sinestro Corps. I forgot who asked me what my favorite run-in was here, but I'm like, it's definitely the Sinestro Corps War.
Isn't that like the Sinestro Corps War one-shot? That might be the best single issue of Green Lantern. Period.
I haven't read it yet.
I can't wait to watch you guys cover that. That is my personal favorite. It was just the amount of villains they get in it is, oh man, I can't wait. There it is.
Third print.
Yeah, I think, yep, mine's up on that wall. Actually, I think I got Van Sciver to sign mine in 2007 as well.
Yeah. Look at that, man. Look at that. The master.
I got one question for you, Matt. What do you think about the eventual differences in the way artists draw Sinestro? Do you have a specific Sinestro you prefer?
Ivan Rice, I think, draws him the best.
Yeah.
I really don't like it when they make like a really big bulbous forehead.
Yeah, I was getting ready to show Daryl Banks's Sinestro here in Green Lantern 50, just so people can see what I'm talking about here. And he's really tall too in 50. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like, why is he so tall? But here's like one example of a panel of Daryl Banks's Sinestro from Green Lantern 50. He's got a lot pointier ears.
Vegeta.
And then I'll try to show a full body shot. Yeah, here's the full body shot. I don't know if it's just a strange perspective, but he looks like he's like 5 feet taller than Hal for some reason.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
He's like
sometimes
Luigi.
when Ethan Van Sciver,
Yeah, and then look at Van Sciver's compared to that.
so,
And then you see Ivan Rice's compared to that.
Oh my god, the huge fort.
I think Van Sciver did that one. I don't know which. I'd have to look and find a book that Ivan Rice did. But his, I have original art.
Oh snaps! Yeah, McD, you're gonna love it, brother. You're gonna love it. Everything.
So I gotta click on his screen for this one.
So you can kind of see it. I don't really want to find a comic for you, but like the way he draws him, he looks more like a regular. He almost looks like an elf, like a regular person.
Yeah.
And then, but like, I think Ivan Rice and maybe even Doug Mankey did him the best. Even
That's gorgeous, man.
was that?
That's gorgeous, bro. Where'd you get that?
On the eBays. So I think Doug. Oh, this is Doug Mankey, not Ivan Rice.
Oh yeah, that year. Yeah, that's right.
So
I always wonder if it's because it seems like Sinestro eventually becomes a little bit more human-like throughout the Johns run, and it's almost like they drew him a little bit more human as we go along.
yeah,
Or maybe that's just me.
I don't like the way that Skyver draws him with that that
Yeah, that's kind of like in between Daryl Banks and Doug Mankey you just showed there.
All right, let me see. I think I've got some stuff here. Talk amongst yourself. I know we're getting totally off topic, by the way.
No, it's all good, man. It's all green related. So
Rice did a lot of stuff in Sinestro Core War.
Yeah. And yeah, if you guys definitely like Ivan Rice, like Green Lantern was his breakout, especially like around the Sinestro Core War time. Because yeah, I think the main run had Ethan Van Sciver on it for a while, and I think Carlos Pacheco was in there too, if I remember right. But once Ivan Rice gets on board, he's on until Doug comes on, and then it's basically just those two until the New 52.
Yeah,
and even
Ivan
after that,
Rice did most of Blackest Night.
Yeah, exactly.
Cwood, how old are you, brother?
I'm 35.
Okay, we're the same age.
Yep.
Same.
That's why books like this. Yeah, like I said, these were the first Green Lantern books I ever bought. So I bought these as a kid. I think I actually got these at a flea market, if I remember right, because I didn't really have a local comic shop at the time because I didn't know they existed. So I had to get these all like antique stores, flea markets, and that stuff because I didn't know where to shop for comics yet. I was such a new collector at the time, and I was probably no more than like 10 or 11 years old trying to pick these up. So, yep, I've had them in the collection ever since.
Check out Johnny's all crap. The old guy. Tim, I need you, man. He so suck some of your youth, bro.
I'm so excited for Sinestro Core War, and like the artwork of Ivan Rice is amazing. Like I'm looking at just like the cover arts, and they're so good.
I was saying earlier that the core special might be my favorite, but that Green Lantern 25 might take the cake. I don't know. It's hard to pick between the two. The conclusion of the Sinestro Core War. Just because, like, not only do you get those key first appearances that get you hyped for what's come after that, but I mean, just that final showdown between the two cores. I don't want to spoil too much more else of it, but there's just an awesome moment that gives me goosebumps every single time I read it.
Cool. I always, when I read just regular books, novels and stuff, I always base them off of moments. If they have those key moments, those usually become some of my favorite books, like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, when Harry stands up to Voldemort in the cemetery and their wands connect, and you have this moment where he sees his mom and he sees his dad. Like moments like that just give you goosebumps and make everything that you're reading worth it, you know?
Yeah.
There was a couple in Rebirth for me, And like I can't even lie, there were 2 moments when I just broke down and sobbed today, and I was like, "Oh, this is so good." So I'm excited to see how many other moments there are like that in this Geoff Johns run.
Yeah,
I was trying to find a panel for you, but like that's how Ivan Rice draws Sinestro. He's a little more pink, but like his face looks like a regular person's head.
Got a cool haircut too.
Yeah. Try ignore those other characters around him for now.
I almost showed you guys a sneak peek of like Green Lantern 52, the cover of that one, because it's one of my. I don't know. Do you want the sneak peek?
That's really cool, man. Yeah, show us.
I lost it. I don't know where it went.
Now, is in the continued reading, Tim and Matt, is there a specific storyline that you guys are looking forward to that you've heard about at this point?
For me, I want to learn about the Red Lanterns and the Orange. So I guess I want to know more about or learn about Larfleeze.
Yeah.
I know nothing about him. And I also am excited about Blackest Night and Sinestro Corps.
Yeah, those are 2 very good ones.
Look at my boy.
Oh, dang, man.
That's a cover art.
Dang.
That's Doug. That's
Yeah, as I said, I think that's Mankey. But yeah, just that moment right there. Oh man, that might be my favorite Sinestro moment. I don't want to say anything else besides that.
What about you, Tim? What are you looking forward to?
I'm actually looking forward to the Black Lantern. What's his name?
Blackest Night.
Blackest Night.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a hand crawling up behind you guys. It's really freaking me out right now. Oh my god, it's gone.
Oh man.
So, even the whole story with the Black Hand before that's some top Geoff Johns storytelling right there. By the way, if you guys just want to read more Geoff Johns, I was talking about Infinite Crisis earlier. I highly recommend that.
Okay.
But I can't recommend enough his Teen Titans run. That got me back into comics around 2003.
Okay.
And I harp on all day about how much I love Connor Kent. He's one of my like him and Hal Jordan are my top 2 favorite characters. That Teen Titans run he did completely redefined Connor Kent as a character and made him so much more better than I thought he could ever be in the 90s when I liked him originally. So just the whole dynamic between Connor Kent, Tim Drake Robin, and Cassie Sandsmark Wonder Girl, it's just a phenomenal read.
I read Geoff Johns. His first thing I ever read was his Superman Secret Origin, and
that's a good one too.
With it, like it was one of my favorite Superman stories ever.
Yeah.
So
and his 1 year later storyline's really good too.
Cool, man. I'm writing all this.
I hated of his Green Lantern movie.
I have my theories about that, but God, that movie, terrible.
It was. So I'm gonna ask him a question because when we started this, before we started discussing it and talking about it, he said he liked the previous book we read, 2 weeks ago. But after we've discussed it, Tim, what do you think about Rebirth, man?
I'm actually starting to like it more, but I still like the first one better.
Cool. I loved it. Loved it. It got better for me. So I'm excited to keep going, man. And John, Comics with Kids, why the heck do you not like Rebirth, man?
I mean, probably the only criticisms for me rereading it was it does take a lot of liberties to get from point A to point B. Like just the whole fact that like Guy Gardner, he goes basically from being warrior to a Green Lantern somehow again. It's like, what happened to his warrior powers? What's going on there? And then like I kept asking myself because like I said before we started, I kind of after the Kyle Rayner run, I kind of hopped off of comics until Rebirth for Green Lantern, and it's just like, how did we get Kilowog back? They didn't really explain how Sinestro got his neck broken and all of a sudden is back in Rebirth. So there were a couple holes they could have filled in a little better, but like I said, the end game of this and the stuff that Geoff Johns had to put together far outweighs the negatives I came up with for me.
Yeah.
So
Man,
do you guys have like rings?
No, man. We were looking at Cwoods and it's like, oh my gosh, we need those, man.
So I was thinking a good way for us in the future to review these is to like, because I've got a few, but like we could just be like, I give this like, I was about to put on my middle finger. That would have been bad, but like you'd be like, I give it like 1 Green Lantern ring or like 5 rings.
I like it, man. I'm cool with that because I'm gonna get a whole bunch of them.
I give it all the rings.
How many?
Heck yeah, man. Where did you guys get those? eBay or what?
They during Blackest Night, because I have every one of them up there of the color spectrum. So during Blackest Night, there were spin-off titles, and they had this. It did get a little bit of flack back then, but basically, if you bought a spin-off title, you get a ring. So I can't remember which ring goes with which comic, but I think there was like Rebels or whatever. There were some dud titles in here that were somehow Black Lantern. Basically, all you had to do to be a Blackest Night spinoff is to have a dead character from that comic be an undead zombie lantern, basically. So to buy all these, like you had to get the comic, and then your store would give you the corresponding ring, basically. That
I can stop by one of my local LCSs just has like a Halloween candy bowl.
Yes.
With just like a ton of rings in it. Like
my shop does now because DC eventually just gave them away. But originally, when these rings were released to stores, that's how they did that.
Dang, I need some.
And then, I think that was also the time Marvel, they decided just to mudsling DC a little bit. So I guess DC wasn't given a lot of credit back for ordering these spinoffs. So Marvel told the retailers, if you rip the cover off of your Blackest Night spinoff and send in like 100 of these covers or whatever, we'll give you like an exclusive Deadpool variant. That's the only way you can get that Deadpool variant.
That's trash.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. It was some goofy. I think it was like a Mark Brooks variant cover, if I remember right. Maybe someone in the chat knows, but I do remember that promotion. So there's a flack between those two companies, between those Blackest Night spinoffs. So that's a funny story every time you see these rings.
That's great, man. We got to get some, right? Yes. And then he's going to wear his Spider-Man suit and good to go.
I think our last episode ran about 2 hours, and I think we're running about 2 hours on this one too. I think we were told we were going to try to keep it to an hour, but we're bad at that.
We are. But when you're involved, Matt, it always happens, bro.
Sorry.
Man, Cwood, thank you so much for being here with us, bro. We really appreciate you stopping in, man.
Big thanks for having me, guys. I'm extremely honored to be your first guest on this awesome idea for a show. I was actually thinking about stealing it for another series. I know the Comic Corps, we were talking about actually all kind of getting together and reading Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol because the show is out now, and it's one of the few Morrison runs I haven't read that's supposed to be pretty essential. So we're actually thinking about doing that. But here's my one plug of the night. If you guys like Green Lantern comics, and I didn't plan this out at all, it kind of just happened in order somehow. Last Sunday, I put out a Signature Sundays video where basically what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going through my collection, seeing how many signed books I actually have, because someone they posed the question to me. I had no idea what the answer was. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and create a whole video series on my channel showing my signed comics, like this. But this last Sunday, I went through my Green Lantern box.
Yeah.
So I'm going through my boxes because I have all my boxes behind me organized in order. So I'm just doing the boxes 3 at a time. And coincidentally, I did the Green Lantern video this last Sunday. So if you guys are interested in seeing signed Green Lantern books, definitely check out my most previous video because I showed over 100 signatures because it was the Green Lantern portion. Because, dude, I have probably almost a short box of just signed Green Lantern books because it was my favorite character and book for a long time.
That's amazing.
So I definitely recommend checking that out if you guys like Green Lantern and signatures.
We will, bro. I was in one of your live shows when somebody actually asked you that question. They're like, how many signatures do you have? And you're like, I don't know, try to guess or whatever.
I think it was 500, and I'm actually almost really close to 500, and I'm in the letter H.
Man, that's nuts. That's cool. Yeah, I'll go check it out for sure, man. I want to see all those covers and those SIGs and everything, man. That's awesome. So Matt, I think Comic McD's telling you in pounds, bro. So it's gonna be.
He's talking about the rings.
Oh shoot!
Oh, in pounds, dollars is more.
It's more dollars, right?
I was already looking at for the trade paperback for No Fear. It's like $10.99.
Okay, sweet.
Pounds.
Man, yeah, those rings. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
So yeah, I'll check my LCS and see if I can get a bunch. We can send them to each other.
Okay, that'll be fun, man. All right, guys. Well, I guess we better call it quits. Matt, when is our next show? What did we decide on, man?
I think we decided on April 4th.
April 4th. That's a Thursday, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we're doing April 4th, guys. Come and join us. Thursday, we'll do 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time again. We're going to have John's Comics with Kids as our special guest to go over Geoff Johns' Green Lantern No Fear. So everybody ready for that? And then I'm thinking I got this idea tonight as we had Carson on. I'm like, you know what? One of these days, we need to have a whole bunch of people on at once.
Yeah. And
just geek out about it, man, because it was absolutely a blast having you on and Cwood. But I think it'll be fun in the future once people, once maybe one of those days where we don't have where somebody specifically loves that book, we could just get a whole bunch of people on. It'll be fun. So we'll have you on again, Cwood, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I would love to be on again.
I think Blackest Night would be a good opportunity to do that.
One person for each of the color spectrums.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool, man. And we can all represent that color spectrum, talk about that. So cool, man. Matt, you want to throw anything in there before we go?
I got nothing, man. Thank you so much again for having me on your channel. Thank you, Carson, for hanging out with us. It's always so nice to meet someone else who like you talk to comic book people and like that feeling you have when you talk about Green Lantern, like that's it feels different than it is like when you're like, oh, I'm a Batman fan. The other guy's like, I'm a Batman fan. You're like, nobody cares. Everybody's a Batman fan.
It's like Hal Jordan took him down in one punch.
One punch. That's it.
Oh man, that's awesome. Matt, your hate for Batman is real, my friend.
I really think I didn't even think about it, but like reading this again was like, I hate you so much.
There's probably a reason Geoff Johns never really had a Batman run.
Good point, man. Good point. Well, guys, everybody, thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate you. Chris Mitchell, I agree 100%, man. But I tell you what, I'm starting to love Hal Jordan. He's creeping up on bats. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for the support. April 4th, remember, go pick up No Fear. Comic Geek McD, congratulations, man, for winning. Matt, thanks for doing that too, brother. I appreciate that. And guys, as always, we'll talk to you later.
Mischief managed.
That's right. Mischief managed.